family did. I am not the voices in my head. I am not the pieces of the brokenness inside. I am light. 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 I'm not the mistakes that I have made, or any of the things that caused me pain. I am not the pieces of the dream I left behind. I am light. 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 I am not the color of my eyes. I am not the skin on the outside. I am not my age. I am not my race. My soul inside is all light. All light. All light. Yeah. All light. I am light. I am light. I am light. I am light. Yeah. I am divinity defined. I am the God on the inside. I am a star, a piece of it all. I am light.
Hi, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Nurturing Justice. It's good to see some of you. Vivian, so nice to see you. Robin, so glad you're here. All of you who are here, we are so grateful that you are here. Some of you I know, some of you I don't, but it's really good just to be in community and to be with all of you people of the light. Amen. Just grateful to be with you people of the light, and grateful to welcome Dina Samuels, Dr. Dina Samuels, to Nurturing Justice to talk about important stuff. So before we get started, let me just say that this meeting is being recorded. So if you don't want your face shown, then definitely, turn off your camera, but we prefer for you to be with us by camera if you can. And please put your name and your email address in the chat. We always are doing these kinds of educational events. We do at least once every month or two. And if you'll find some of our past events are on our YouTube channel. So if you go to YouTube and you just put in Nurturing Justice channel, you'll find a lot of really interesting presentations that we've done over the course of the last several years. Jazz and Justice, Race and Resistance in the Digital Age. I mean, there's all kinds of good stuff. Christians Against Christianity. I mean, we've got really good, have had some really good and interesting programs, and all, informal and just good conversations. So please check that out. So without further ado, I want to welcome, and I'll also ask that you keep yourselves muted during the presentation unless you have a question. I want to welcome Dr. Dina Samuels to Nurturing Justice. The topic for tonight is mindfulness, healing, and social justice, right? I think that was what we put on the flyer: mindfulness, healing, and social justice. So we're really grateful that Dr. Dina is here to talk to us about that, because she's got some experience with all of it. Let me give you a little bit of a bio. This is a snippet from her website. So, Dr. Dina Samuel serves as a workplace well-being, burnout prevention, and leadership development consultant, author, speaker, and coach. As an award-winning and tenured professor, Dr. Samuels taught at the University of Colorado in Colorado Springs for 20 years while consulting around the U.S. and beyond. She now consults and coaches full-time on mindfulness, wellness, resiliency, and inclusive leadership development, and she while remaining on the faculty at the university. Her latest program, and probably really popular right about now, is Overcoming Burnout: Inner Self-Care Solutions. It's a widely sought-after 4-part series that provides hands-on strategy for building resiliency, wholeness, and community. By request from clients, her latest book is called She wrote and published a book called Fast Relief from Anxiety: 25 Tools to Calm Your Nervous System. And if any of you turn on the news for 5 seconds or more, you will need immediate relief from anxiety. This book offers solutions to the common anxiety that occurs with burnout and probably just living in the world. Among her other books the publication is The Mindfulness Effect: An Unexpected Path to Healing, Connection, and Social Justice. So I really welcome you, Dr. Dina. And I want to say first, before y'all leave and have to leave off, on May 31st, we're anticipating, we're working to solidify it now. We're offering a program called Spiritual Resilience in the time of chaos, for such a time as this. And so that's going to be like a day-long program. The cost will be $150 per person, and it's going to be really interesting. So if you put your name and your email in the chat, then we will be able to make sure that you get the information on how to register for that event. You're not going to want to miss it. It's going to be, chock full of really good tools and information on how to survive in these chaotic and challenging times. But without further ado, let's welcome Dr. Dina. Can I get some emojis in the chat? Can you put up some love bombs, some hearts, some flowers, if you know how to use your reaction button? Just do something. Put up some hearts, some flowers, welcome, Dr. Dina. How are you doing this evening?
Thank you so much. That's so sweet. I really appreciate that from everybody. I'm doing great. I mean, even at such a time as this,
right.
Things are good.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you work hard at it. So
you.
Yeah, and we all have to. So I want to start with can you tell us a little bit more about yourself, and just any nuggets that you'd like to share and that you feel comfortable sharing about your background and some of more interesting experiences that you've had in the world or where you've lived, and whatever you want to share that you think is really
well, I will. There's one or two people on the call right now who could probably tell stories that I wouldn't want told.
Okay. All right, y'all. Don't.
Just kidding. They probably would say it's all good. It's all good. No. So I taught at the University of Colorado in Colorado Springs for roughly 20 years. And I'm still on faculty there now. And I was teaching courses in social justice studies. So I taught courses on racism, sexism, heterosexism, ageism, ableism, all the things. And at the same time, I was doing, activism work in the community. I was also, I was the board of directors for the Privilege Institute, which runs the White Privilege Conference, which is a social conference. I did that for 14 years. Was involved with that on the planning team and everything else. And so I really got to meet some forward thinkers in the social justice movement, and so it was very exciting, and at the same time, obviously, really hard. And that was a time when I got to I say got to because I do think it's a privilege and an honor to experience and really get my whiteness challenged in ways that yeah, even teaching this stuff, I didn't know what I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so at some point along the way, I would say it was probably about a decade ago. No, more than that now, 10, 15 years ago. I came across some research that showed that if you have any kind of mindfulness practice, which could be where mindfulness comes from, so it could be a prayer practice or a spiritual practice, or it might be, going out into nature, it might be going for a run, whatever gets you into the zone. Could be meditation, but it could also just be doing some artwork or doing gardening, that if you did that just for a few minutes a day, it actually lowers your bias. So,
Really?
yeah, so I got really excited about this because at the time I had already been teaching implicit bias trainings for at least a decade, if not two at that point. That made it maybe a decade and a half. And this, I had my own mindfulness practice for my own serious healing journey. And so everything combined. And at that point, I was like, oh, this all makes sense. This is what I meant to do, to bring mindfulness into the social justice realm. Before that, everything was really siloed. And, you had social justice over here, you had mindfulness over there, you had environmental justice was, siloed in and of itself.
Right.
Starting to combine all of these pieces, it just all kind of came together and it made sense to me. Yeah.
Well, and probably a lot of people in the social justice movement, or a lot of maybe, more progressive or politically inclined people would be like, oh, that's just too woo woo. What is mindfulness anyway? Like, mind your business. Like, we don't need to, like, what, we're not interested in that mindfulness crap. Like, that's just distracting, right? Like, all that spiritual stuff is distracting away from the work. We got to do the work. We got to do the work, right? So did you find that at all in bringing mindfulness to the social justice arena?
Oh, definitely. Especially, I mean, now it's a little bit more like people have heard of it. They've kind of, it's a much bigger term now that people kind of know.
Right.
There's still people who are a little leery of it because it's, if you don't really understand what mindfulness is, for some folks who may be on the more religious bent might feel like it's blasphemous or counter whatever. That's
Right.
what I've heard anyway. That's what I've been told.
Right.
And there's some people who just they don't want to go there, and they're doing their social justice work and happy with what they're doing. And I'm like, great, it's if it's not for you, it's not for you. That's fine. But I did come across quite a bit of resistance when I first started. But what happened was I asked if we could bring a mindfulness session to the White Privilege Conference, and the response was yes, and it was packed. I
Really.
Yeah. And so it was like, okay, something's happening here. Something is going on. And so that sort of was a little piece of the puzzle coming forward. Yeah. Yeah. Moving forward.
Excellent. So, okay. So now define it. What exactly is mindfulness? I mean, you talked about the practices, gardening, running, blah, 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 but what exactly would you say is mindfulness?
So I've been all over the country talking about mindfulness at this point, and I always ask the question, what do folks think mindfulness is? And they always come up with the same few kinds of concepts, which is present moment awareness or focus or, focused attention, um, you know, breathing, be staying present, staying in the moment. All of these pieces are, my favorite part of mindfulness is the idea that if you have a mindfulness practice, that instead of reacting, you're then sort of taking all the information in and able to respond instead of react. And I think we need a lot more of that today.
Right. Yeah, that's very true. So, well, now that when you say we need a lot more of that today, that I want to bring that present, right? So, what are some of the, you know, things that are happening? Well, I don't even really need to ask that question, but how do you, in the face of such onslaught, right, of an onslaught. Like literally every time you turn around, I mean, every second of every day, it seems like some new catastrophe, some new tomfoolery, some new shenanigans, some new violation of rights is happening. How do you maintain mindfulness in the face of all of that without completely disconnecting from reality?
Yeah, yeah. And to be honest with you, disconnecting from reality is not that's a survival mechanism, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And I don't mean that I'm not trying to be flippant about it at all. I'm really saying that you know, meditation for me is a place that I, that I tend to go. I have a daily meditation practice and I try to live mindfully throughout the day. And I can talk about more specifically what some of those practices might be for folks if they want those kinds of tools. But I think that it's to compartmentalize, to know, okay, I need to know what's going on so that I'm not putting my head in the sand.
Right.
But it can't be an onslaught. If there's an onslaught, what happens is your nervous system gets dysregulated and you can't get it back. You go down the spiral, you go down the rabbit hole, and it's really hard. It builds momentum. And so
Yes.
the idea is if you can catch yourself, if you're focusing inward and like, okay, I can handle this right this moment, I'm doing okay, but constantly be checking back to your own internal mechanism, the one where it tells you, oh no, I am not okay. And if we can follow that before it builds the momentum where you're now totally, because that's where burnout comes from. It's this constant state going down those rabbit holes and not being able to pull ourselves back. And pulling ourselves back is the idea of resilience. And we need more of that. Like that's a practice. That is not you have it or you don't. That's a practice. So yeah, it's the idea of like little snippets and then check in. Can I be, I just looked at the news for 2 minutes and I'm already starting to, oh, well, today's not the day to go down to keep looking.
Exactly.
Something might be doing better. Maybe I can do 3 minutes, instead of just checking the headlines. Maybe I can go a little deeper. You know, but I would definitely say set as much of a limit as you can each day. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's interesting that you say that because intuitively I did that, right? So after the election, leading up to the election is all this excitement, like hope and joy and, the possibilities. And then election night, I'm like, oh, I see where this is going. And I turned off the news and I was an absolute news junkie. I mean, when I say news junkie, I would literally watch it like from the moment I woke up until the moment I went to bed. And even if I wasn't really watching it would be sort of on in the background, right? And after the election result, after on November 6th, I turned it off, and I said, and I am not turning it back on. That's it. I'm done. And and so I was very intentional about not watching the news because it was dysregulating me. It was kind of like I was, literally like getting sick on the stomach. I was throwing up. I was getting headaches. I was angry. I was cursing. I was, losing it. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, that's that's enough. The dysregulation you were talking about is definitely what I experienced, and then got into my own in a very intentional way into my own mindfulness practice. So I really appreciate what you're saying. So those are the challenges, right? For part of the problem is that even if you're not looking for it, it looks for you, right? So in passing, you'll have a conversation. Somebody will want to talk about the latest, tomfoolery that was done today, or you'll turn on your computer and you're getting ready to open up to your email, and it's either an email or you'll see the news feed from your browser that's telling you everything that you really don't want to delve into. And it still causes anxiety. So the book that you wrote, like the 25 tips, I really want you to give people some tools, right, including me. I'm going to take myself off camera and I'm going to just let you riff on this. Give
Okay.
people some tools for how to manage anxiety. So I'm going to, yeah. So because we need them, we really need them. In addition to some of the stuff we'll cover on the 31st, right? When we meet, when we have like a longer time to spend, is how do we engage in ritual for self-care, right? What is real self-care beyond the mindfulness and beyond the massages and getting a pedicure, right? Like, what are the things that we need to be doing? But I wanted you to share some of the tips that you have from your latest book, and also please put the link to it in the chat.
I sure will. And I want to say this, first of all, I appreciate all of that. And I also want to be able to save time for questions too. If there's specific things that folks are wanting, to learn or to know, please feel free to share what
Absolutely. We're definitely going to leave time for questions. And if you have questions that you just want to spit out, then just put it in the chat.
Yeah. And so here's, if that's helpful. And then I want to give a little bit of a background just so that folks understand why it's so easy to go negative right now. I mean, it's neat. The bottom line is it's easy to go negative all the time if you understand what's happening in our brains, right? So there's a Stanford study that says that we have roughly somewhere around 60,000 thoughts a day. You may have heard this already, but it's important to know, especially if you haven't heard it before. We have roughly 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. 75% of them are negative. And 90% of them are repetitive, meaning they were the same negative thoughts we had yesterday. So when you know that that's what's going on in our brain, I mean, our brains we think thoughts. That's what the brain is there to do. And when you know that this is the background, then it's like, well, of course, you get one little snippet of negative thought or a negative emotion in your body. And the next thing you know, you've gone down that rabbit hole I was talking about. And that's, again, this is how burnout happens. So I was going to share, just a few tools from, some of them might be in the book. Some of them are in my Overcoming Burnout program, but I hope they'll be helpful. I'm going to share very quickly one that I've shared before with Nurturing Justice, but I know there's some new folks on here who may not have heard this before. So I call it a 10-second vacation. I'm just going to teach it real quick, and I'm going to invite folks to participate so that you get a little bit of a practice here. So I'm going to invite you, if you would, just to either close your eyes or just gently gaze down so that you can kind of close off whatever is going on out around you and just focus inward for a moment. And as it turns out, if our exhale is longer than our inhale, it actually tells our brain it's time to calm down. It actually activates our parasympathetic nervous system, which tells our brain, okay, it's time to pause, it's time to relax, everything's going to be okay. So this is the 10-second vacation is inhaling for a count of 4, and exhaling for a count of 6. And I invite you just to do that at your own pace. It doesn't have to be exactly seconds, but just count in for 4 as you inhale. You can inhale through the nose. And then as you exhale through the mouth. You can even bring your shoulders back and down as you exhale, just to really release whatever you can. And just notice how your body feels. Just doing that a couple of times. Just notice the effect that it has on your body. That's really important to see. How does this feel for me? Is this a good use of my time? This is a good practice for me. I call it the 10-second vacation because even though everything around you might still be chaotic, you have actually focused inward. And so you go from reacting to responding. It's a beautiful mindfulness practice. So feel free when you're ready to go ahead and flutter your eyes open or just, come back to screen. And I would love for you, if you don't mind, if folks don't mind, just putting in the chat, how did that feel? How does that feel for your body, or how do you feel now after having done just a few rounds of that?
For me, it made me less anxious, just like, yeah, everything is going to be okay.
It's gonna be okay. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's good. Less anxious would have been great. Oh, Robin said has dogs barking apparently. Okay. Angela says relief. Yeah. Vivian says calmer. So, all the practices that I offer, whether it's in my program or in my book, are really, the idea is to calibrate, to see how am I beforehand on a scale. You could do a scale of 1 to 10. How anxious am I right now? And then calibrate after the fact and say, did that work for me? Because this book has 25 tools in it. There's so many more. I could have kept writing, but I just wanted to get it out and, get it in people's hands who needed it. And it's a handbook. It's not a thick book. It's like goes right to the solutions. And the idea here is that, some of those tools may work better than others for each nervous system. So you definitely want to try a bunch of different things and see what works for you. And I'll also say, this is the hard part, is that what works for you today may not work tomorrow. You may need a different one tomorrow. But typically there's some that you can keep coming back to once you practice and you start looking at them, you're like, or trying them out. Like, oh yeah. This one, I know this one will work for me if I'm nervous. But that takes a little bit of time to figure out which ones work the best for you. Yeah, Robin, box breathing is great. And that's inhaling, inhaling, holding at the top for the same count, and then exhaling, and then holding at the bottom of a breath. I'm doing the box of a breath. So there's lots of different practices, but there's a lot of different breathing practices you can do. You can find lots of stuff online once you know what to look for, in terms of breath work and those kinds of things. The other piece that I'm going to suggest is, and I may have mentioned this one too, which folks really tend to like because it's so easy, is literally, and I invite you to do this with me, take your arms and cross your arms across your chest. And then as you inhale, you just, give yourself a little, you can even give yourself a little squeeze if you want. But then as you exhale, allow your hands to come down to your elbows and then come back up again. And you do that a few times. This is called havening. And it's a beautiful practice. It's sort of like giving yourself a little hug and just telling yourself everything's going to be fine. And you can use whatever words or mantra, whatever works for you. I'm enough. I'm okay. Everything's okay. I'm going to be fine. Those kinds of things. And just, again, it's another practice you can try and see if it works for you and your body, and see if you notice a difference. I'm just going to keep going. If there really is like a hug, Tara says, yeah, that's great. I'm going to also share a practice that I've heard in many different people talk about, but I think it works so well. The idea is to do a little bit of journaling, and I call it the circle of agency. So as it turns out that a lot of our stress and anxiety comes from the feeling like we're stuck and there's nothing we can do. And it turns out that the antidote to that is to get active. So part of that is literally just moving your body, right? And I'll come back to that in a minute. Here's another way to think about agency. And that is, you draw 3 concentric circles, okay, on a piece of paper. And the inner circle is you write down all the things that you actually have agency over or in, or that things that you actually can do something about. So those things might be, I'm going to focus on the present moment. I'm going to take a breath. I'm going to pause. I'm not going to react in this moment. I'm going to say, I'll get back to you on that. I'm going to set my clear boundaries. I can choose how much, when and how, what food I consume, what news I consume, how much water I take in. When I'm shopping, I can choose between what I need and what I want so that I can reduce the amount of, production and chemicals that come from that in terms of environmental justice. I can choose how much exercise I get. I can choose if I want to meditate or find some sort of mindfulness practice. I'm going to start gardening. These are things that you have control over in your life, right? I can choose, what kind of art I want to create, or go to a museum and see, or how much time I'm going to spend in nature. All of these pieces would go in that central circle. The second circle, the next one, is the things that you have some agency in. So maybe it's, for what's going on now, maybe it's, instead of watching the news, which is obviously going to be on the last circle, right, where there's no agency, because watching is just consuming the negativity, right? The middle circle is the one where you can say, maybe you're invested, you're doing some research about what you can do, right? Maybe it's calling your senator, or it's going to a rally, or calling a friend and telling them about, something that rather than the doom and gloom, here's a proactive thing we can do. Do you want to do it with me? Maybe we're going to write some postcards, or whatever it is, whatever to do. That goes in the second circle. That's some stuff that you overall you may not be able to solve necessarily, but you can do something, right? So that's the middle circle, right, where you have some agency. And then, of course, the outside circle, as I was suggesting, where you have little to no agency, right? Consuming news is definitely in that outside circle. And there's a lot of things that happen along the way that we really don't, I'm sure you all know what are the things you have agency over and what you don't. And a big part of it is just realizing or recognizing, oh, why am I feeling so anxious? Oh, it's because I can't do anything about this. I'm feeling stuck. And the best part of recognizing that is that there are things that we can do about it. Because I know from my own experience of like severe debilitating anxiety that I had a few years ago, I felt like I couldn't do anything. I literally would get into a ball, as my friend Susie knows, because I was on her couch for part of this time. I was in a ball. I didn't understand. I didn't know about adrenaline, that adrenaline was pumping through my body, and I was so sick I couldn't eat. And I lost a bunch of weight. And it was a really horrific time of my life. Thank God for the support that I got. And at the same time, I was like, okay, something's going on here. I need to learn what it is. And that's how I got to this point. I literally did all this research. I started taking classes. Went on retreats with neuroscientists. I did like all of these things just to learn and consume, so I could learn what are these tools. And what I learned that was probably the most important thing is to know when you feel that surge of adrenaline rush that comes through your body when you're feeling super stressed, and somebody brings yet one more piece of information and you're like, I just can't. That's a time when your body, there literally is adrenaline probably pooling in your stomach, in your belly, in your body. And you don't want to curl up in a ball. This is the time where you want to move. You want to take a walk. You want to shake it out. I used to do a lot of the shaking meditations where you're just literally shaking your body from head to toe just to get the adrenaline out. And believe it or not, I would feel so much better. So moving your body, it could be dancing. It could be, there's other ways too. If you don't want to physically move, or for whatever reason you can't, you can hum. Humming actually calms your system down as well. Singing, if you can. Oops, that was me. Yep, I agree. Yeah, so yeah, humming's a good thing. Singing's great with your by yourself or with other people. If you can co-regulate your nervous system with other folks, that's great. If you live alone, especially like I did during COVID, it's it becomes a little bit more challenging, but there's so many things you can do even on your own. And just moving, getting outside, even looking outside the window and seeing the trees, seeing movement, all of those things are really, really helpful. Yeah.
And it seems so simple, but I mean, and to my ear, it would seem ineffective, right? Like this is me because I want to have like a big program and give me like multiple steps and make it, but the simplicity of it and the easy availability of it is really, I mean, like anybody can walk outside, you can anybody could shake you can shake your body, and you might feel silly doing it, but it's if that's what's going to work, that's what's going to work. I mean, I got to a point, there came a point in time after the election that I knew intuitively that if I did not do something radically different, that I wasn't going to be able to continue the work of nurturing justice. That like I had to completely shift the paradigm, right, in my mind in order to be able to continue the work. And so, I started doing, a lot of energy healing work, right? Which, basically it's all, to me, it's like there's only one thing, right? I mean, how do we connect to that which is, the source of all that is? But I want to ask you something. I mean, so these are, and maybe you could explain this from a human brain standpoint. And one question I have is what is the deal? Okay, so Timothy Snyder says that, one thing when you're faced with tyranny, you should not obey in advance. Why is it that we see so many people obey, besides the people that want the fascism and the authoritarianism? Why is it that we see so many people capitulating and obeying in advance, right? Or anticipating that they're going to be targeted or they're going to be in trouble or they're like, they can't speak out. So they like, why is it that they shrink? What is that? And what, where does that come from in our brains?
Yeah, it's a beautiful question. And it's really disturbing when you think about it because you're like,
Yes.
you only have to do what you have to do. You don't have to you don't have to anticipate. I've, earlier in January, I had people reaching out to me saying, please take my name off of your website. I can't be associated with you because of the social justice work that I do. And so I wanted to, in fact, I did write back saying to these folks who sent me those messages, which I didn't really understand yet, that putting it in writing was probably not the smartest thing to do. But I said, can you tell me, is this anticipatory or are you being required to do this? Which was kind of a ridiculous question, but I didn't know what I didn't know quite then and learned very quickly that that's not something you want to put in writing. So, and not surprisingly, I got not a single reply, single response. So, and I did, I of course did what they asked me to do, but I'm not unfamiliar with the idea of complying for compliance's sake. And I think that it has to do with the idea that we're so quick to go to negativity in fear, right? You and I have talked quite a bit about what the fear is. Like we are really so the idea that fear is, I'm sure you all have heard this, false evidence appearing real, right? And so some of this stuff is not false, right? We're getting evidence that is scary. There's some scary stuff going on. And I think that we tend to jump ahead to think, where is this going? My daughter actually worked for the Holocaust Museum when she was in grad school. And she would say to me, and she's said to me in the last couple of months as well, she says, Mom, don't, this is not that yet. We're not there at this point. not
Yet.
know where we're headed. We really don't know where we're headed, and it doesn't seem like it's going in a good direction, but we aren't there. So don't make the mistake of saying we're further along than we are right now. And I said, yeah, but we need to kind of think ahead. And she's like, that's not wrong. But the idea is, I think that the fear gets a hold of us. And, you know, the fear, in my estimation, there's a lot of things to be scared of right now, people being pulled off the streets and all of that. I mean, we know we don't need to go, you know, you can
Right.
turn on the news and you'll see, or maybe you have to look at different news, you know what's going on. But all that to say, I think that when you are surrounded by fear, it's a little bit of it's hard to get out of it. And so people are scared, I better do whatever, you know, to preempt, which in my estimation, and again, this is just me saying, I don't think that's the best choice. I think that compliance is a choice, right now, for many people. For some folks, it's no longer a choice. For those who it is a choice, you you can choose to move forward, or you can choose to say, wait a second, I there's nobody's telling me that nobody's knocking at my door today, right in this moment. For some folks there are, but for the most majority of us, we are not at that point where people are knocking down our doors. And so what can you do? This is really what resistance looks like, is just not complying. Right.
So let me, I was, occasionally on social media, you'll find these little videos, right? So I don't do TikTok, but, on Facebook, you'll find some TikTok videos. So there was this video on of, some alleged ICE agents in, amorphous, like not really identifiable police uniforms, official uniforms, that appeared at this guy's door. And it's like knocked on his door and said, can you come out? This is ICE, da, 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 you're under arrest or whatever. And the guy, clearly a Latin man, he's like, man, get the F out of, he just started cursing. He's like, get the F off my property. I don't know who you are. You don't have any warrant for me. He just basically, and he just kept on saying, get out of my face, get off my property, get out of here. And they just all looked at each other like, oh, there's resistance. And they turned around and left. Yeah. It's like, right. But I think that and fear can be paralyzing, and it is paralyzing, Angela. But I think that, the root of this, I want to really go there, right? Because I think that ultimately what we're most scared of is death. And I say that, I think that everything sort of, this is my opinion. I don't have any scientific evidence of this, right? I'm not a doctor, even though I play one on TV, but I think that what happens is that people are really scared of death. And I think that it's because we have done a disservice to folks about what, death really is. And it's really an illusion. That we, as energy, we can never be, our bodies can cease to exist, right? This particular manifestation, but for real, like once energy is created, it can never be destroyed. So, I think that we've been really ill informed, and death has been so scary. And also it sells, right? Like fear sells. It's like sex and fear sell. Sex maybe not as much as fear now, right? But fear really sells. If you turn on, and there's all kinds of versions of it, right? Like if you turn on any given story can give you a different take on, what you should be scared of, and look at like the current occupant of the White House and his cronies have done is make you afraid of people who are not from this country, right? Certain kinds of people, the brown and the black people, right? Those are the people that you have to fear. And they're eating your dogs, they're eating your cats, they're stealing your jobs, and it's like, this stuff actually sells, Yeah. Okay.
It definitely does sell, and the idea, and it's contagious.
It is. It's outrageous. Oh my goodness. Okay.
Yeah. So what I would love for folks to know is that, you know, this comes down to, and this is I feel like you've heard this before, but we're the ones we've been waiting for.
Right.
And I say that to say it's sort of like this is not a dress rehearsal. Here we are. And when I say that, I say for folks who have some sort of a spiritual practice, whatever that is, right? It could be, again, it could be religious, it could be going for a run, whatever it is that is for you. The place that you feel the most you, that feels like you're aligned with your best and highest self. This is what we need. To me, that's love, right? That's like
Yes.
a place of love. So if we are staying in that place, then the fear can't really get in.
Right.
And it's really easy for the fear to, knock on the door of that,
Right.
and we can, if we are staying in our best and highest self and
Yes.
that we are love and we are filled with love, we can let our intuition guide us and be like, that's not for me.
Yep.
This news channel, I can watch 2 minutes of it, but that's not for me. And really let your intuition, like practice your intuition. Your intuitive sense will tell you when you've had enough. And
Yes.
please follow that. Please follow what your body is telling you. Your body always knows. Yeah.
And it's an extraordinary, and it seems to me, I mean, it sounds trite to say it, but that this really is an extraordinary opportunity. We are really standing, at the precipice, or not even at the precipice. We're in the middle of what I think is like one of the most exquisite opportunities in human history for us to evolve spiritually. And I mean, I really truly believe that. And I think that, apart from all the practical things, I think this really is, in terms of justice and the laws and the this and the that, I think this really is an opportunity for us to grow into our highest selves. I really do. So I appreciate you saying that. I want to give folks an opportunity to ask questions. And before I open up the room and go gallery view, I'm going to put in the chat ways that you can donate to Nurturing Justice so that we can continue this kind of programming. I don't like to invite people to do anything wait a second, let me make sure. Oops. Sorry. I like to be able to compensate people and see if this works. Nope, didn't work. Hold on a second.
You mean to put that in? Hold on, I got it. .org, right?
Yeah, that's one, but that's good. Thank you. I'm going to give this way through Zelle. So please make a contribution so we can continue this good work. There we go. That's one way. And then there's another way through our Network for Good platform. Hopefully this works too. All you saw was the fingers before. There we go. All right, I'm going to take myself off. I'm going to remove these. And I want to go to gallery view. Gallery view. Okay, anybody have any questions, comments, or threats for Dr. Dina? Go ahead, Michael.
I wanted to thank you for just putting us in a better new place. I think we all get our sphere of comfort, and just trying something new helps us get out of that tight circle. You made a comment, resistance is not complying. That's so true. In the state of Wisconsin, which I'm from, Milwaukee, it's the power of the purse strings up in Madison. In Milwaukee, we've got a problem with lead in all our water in the city of Milwaukee. We've had 6 schools closed because of asbestos problems. but yet there's a resistance to spending the needed money for the safety of the people in these areas. And so, getting out to vote is a resistance possibility, and sharing our stories with others and get the true story, not the sanitized for somebody's purpose. So I do like that resistance is not complying, but we need actions when we're not dealt all the cards that we need.
Absolutely. Thank you. Anybody else? Go ahead, Kathy. It's good to see you. Yeah, you're muted. Still muted.
There.
There.
So Dina talked about a book with 25 habits to relieve anxiety. What is that?
Yes. Dina, can you put the link for your books back into the chat again? It was probably before Kathy came into the room.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll put it in. I can also put in my Overcoming Burnout program, or it's really on my website, but here are the books. And then my website is really just dinasamuels.com. So if that's helpful for folks, then you can find my Overcoming Burnout program there. Here's the link, the landing page directly to the program for folks who might be interested.
Thank you. Thanks.
These tips are really important, because we're navigating such challenging times. Does anybody have anybody else? Well, Dina, I really want to thank you. I mean, is there any other wisdom, last minute wisdom that you'd like to share with us as we get ready to close out this session?
Yeah, I would. I'm going to invite folks, if it works for your body, just to hold your hands up like this and put them out as far as you see, as like, just to sort of pretend this is your lifespan. Okay, so you can have it as wide as you want. It doesn't matter. I mean, and this is all just relative. So if you consider this is your lifespan, and notice that this time period, potentially this 4 years, hopefully 2, but maybe less. Who knows? We don't know. We don't know what the future holds right now. But just know that it's a blip. Just think about the before and the after, right? That we've been through really hard times before, and this is a blip considering the realm of our lifetime. So I just wanted to share that maybe, this hand gesture of just noticing what, a time frame is actually can be really helpful in terms of our brain reframing what's happening right now. Because right now it feels like we are in the midst of this horrific thing, which we are. But if you do this, then you're like, oh yeah, but it's a finite amount of time.
Yeah, and sometimes it just doesn't seem like that. It just seems like this is, it seems like days are entire years. It just seems, and yet the opposite, right? And yet it's just going by so quickly, and everything is happening so quickly. It's really strange, right? Like it's like a strange sort of time warp. I want to just add, there's a practice when you said 10-second vacation, I thought about when I was on this retreat, they asked us to imagine the best day, write down your perfect day. What does your perfect day look like? And of course I'm writing, well, as I awaken on the Riviera in my, luxury, opening up to a beautiful, salt water, infinity pool, and, the person cooks me my breakfast, and I really go back to that, right? I go back to, what would my perfect day look like, and knowing that, it's just a matter of my imagination and a couple of dollars that can actually get me to that place, one day soon.
Yeah, the really cool thing is your brain really doesn't know the difference between actually experiencing it and thinking about it. Our imaginations are so powerful, for better and for worse.
Right.
Good news is we can think ourselves into vacation and we actually take a deep breath, like our breath, our body actually responds as though we're there. It's really cool. Really cool.
Excellent. Yeah, it is. That is really cool. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you. And if you enjoyed this session, there's much more to come on the 31st. So put your name before we close out. Put your name um, in the chat and your email address, because I'll be sending you an invitation on May 31st. We're going to do a session. It's probably going to go 4 or 5 hours, but we're going to explore a lot of different things. Dina is going to be one of the leads, but I've got some other really wonderful practitioners and who will teach us about how to engage in ritual for healing and how to, like elements of prayer and energy work. And, really, because it's really important that we take really good care of ourselves in this season, and that we are enabled to continue to do the good work that we're called to do for justice.